frustration, tiredness, just overwhelmed, overworked. Rent is too damn high, all of the things. We just bring those to you because you love us. You invite us to come and experience your presence without judgment, without fear, without pressure. Being in your presence is just being safe in ourselves. Because we're good, there's nothing to be afraid of. Help us to know that today, that you love us because we're lovable. You made us, and that's why we're good. Help us to just rest today. There's nothing to be worried about. Not in this place. For those of us who are carrying loads of worry, help us carry it. Help us begin to process it, lay it down. We love you and we thank you, Jesus. Amen. Amen. Hey, y'all. So, if you're new here, just want to let you know that this is a place you can relax. You probably, I don't know that there's like a more chill, laid-back church than LA Church. Like, you know, whatever happens, it's going to be fine. That's kind of how we approach it. It's been just a year of figuring it out. And so just know that if this is familiar to you, great. And if you're like, what the heck is happening here? That's okay too. You can just relax. There's going to be zero pressure here today. We are a no pressure zone. So, about when I was a senior in college, I got this amazing opportunity through my university. They had a partnership with Cambridge University in England, and you could go and spend a semester and some extended months just hanging out at Cambridge and going to lectures at the different colleges. And so it was this program that I got to go be a part of. And me and some friends, it was like a group of like 20, 25 of us. And so we traveled to England, we got to live there for a little while. And the coolest part about being there was our tour guide, this guy named Andy. And Andy was kind of like a legend of a story at Lee University because he did all of our European trips that our school took. And they were, he was known for having a really good time, and he liked to party, and there was a story that he always had a few favorites, and they're like, all right, you gotta get in good with Andy. And so I was like, all right, I'm gonna win Andy over, because it was important for, he's like this middle-aged, old British guy who, I don't know if he's ever sober, but he was just a really good time guy. He didn't take BS off anybody. And I thought, all right, I need Andy to know that I can hang and chill. And so slowly but surely, I think I won Andy over. And there was this opportunity where we got to go and live with some locals. And so Andy comes up to me and he's like, hey, I hooked you up with a buddy of mine. And I was like, oh, for real? He's like, that's where you're gonna stay. So me and 4 other people, we show up at this house, but it's not a house. It's a castle, like legitimately some sort of castle that they weren't even allowed to change certain things because it was like historical, and so they turned this like castle into a home. And so we show up and we know that this is Andy's buddy and that it's gonna be a good time. And so we go and we go into this crazy house, and we're starting to get to know this family, and they're so kind. We're in Newcastle, so we're just stoked. You know, because it can be awkward having to stay with people. That sounds like a nightmare that you don't know. But these people were legit from the beginning, and so we just showed up, and so he's like, hey, can I get y'all something to drink? And so we're like, yeah, sure. And we're all college guys, so we're like, we'll have a beer. And he goes, oh, I'm not much of a beer guy. Can I show you my drink selection? And we're like, yeah, sure. And so he starts to kind of take us down this hall of his home castle, and he gets to this big arched door, and he goes, oh, we're gonna go down here. And he opens it up, and it's this staircase with literal fire flames on the wall, lining, like literally like an old-timey I don't know, like medieval movie, and I was like, this is a fire hazard, right? Like you have open flames. And so he opens the door, and there's all these stairs, and along the stairs, no kidding, there was more beer than a 7-Eleven has. He had, no joke, like 40 different kinds of beer in cases going down. And we all looked at each other and we're like, not much of a beer guy. We're like, what's going on? Does this guy own a convenience store? So we like go further down and we're getting, deeper and deeper. I should have been afraid at this point, in a foreign country and we're going to a dungeon. But we go and we get in there and he just goes, what country do you want to go to? And we're like, what? And he takes us around the corner, and it's this most beautiful wine cellar I've ever seen in my life. Just wall after wall after wall after wall of wine. And by the looks of this house, I know it's not 2-buck chuck. It is something quality. And we're like, we have no idea. And so he just is giddy with excitement. You can tell this is his thing. Like, this is the thing he likes to do when people come over. And he just starts grabbing, and every wall, he goes, this is Spain, this is southern France, this is California. And he just is naming all these different countries. We're blown away. We know nothing about wine. And so we're just like, this is cool. And he just starts grabbing these dusty bottles one after one. He's like, here, don't shake this. And he's doing all this stuff, and he's so excited. And we go upstairs, and he begins to just pour all of these different wines. Now, this is not really a special wine. I just bought it at Wine Stop right over here. But they have really good prices. Everything is lined up by their price. So I just always go back to the $10 section. So anyway, go support Wine Stop. They're rad. But he began to just open up these really old bottle of wines. They were not screw top, by the way. But I don't have a wireless mic, so I can't be Britney Spears today. But he just began to pour us all these multiple glasses of wine. And he began to put them in different containers, and we would shake them, and he'd be like, smell it now! He'd be like, no, smell this. And we were like, all wasted on us. But we were enjoying the hospitality because it was his gift, it was his excitement that he was able to share what he had collected with us. That he had prepared a table for these college kids who had been eating way too much junk food and just prepared a feast before us and just shared these beautiful, very expensive wines with these young kids. And what we experienced there, and Andy hooked us up with this family, was just radical hospitality. And so that's what we're talking about today. And this idea of radical hospitality is one of the core values of LA Church. And I wanted to spend this Sunday, a week from our fall launch, our 1-year anniversary, just kind of rooting us in this value. And I know some of you are new and some of you have been here for a while. But either way, we're inviting you into this if you are interested. But it's us embracing the posture of radical hospitality in all areas of our life. In the way I define radical hospitality with the help of my robot friend, ChatGPT, radical hospitality is the practice of going above and beyond to welcome, include, and care for others, regardless of their background, beliefs, or circumstances. It involves intentionally creating a space where all people feel valued, accepted, and loved, and actively seeking to break down barriers that may prevent others from feeling included. Radical hospitality is not just about being kind and generous. It is a transformative and proactive commitment to creating a more inclusive, compassionate, and just world. And I want to add to that it is a transformed and proactive commitment to creating a more inclusive, compassionate, and just church. And also a more inclusive and compassionate, just life. And as apprentices and disciples of Jesus, for those of you who follow the way of Jesus, radical hospitality, it's our baseline. It's kind of where Jesus starts this whole thing. And we're going to be reading in John 2, 1 through 11, if you have your phone or scripture, feel free to take it out. It's not on the screen today, but I'll read it to you. This is how so many folks would have heard it in the first century anyway, through story around a fire and most likely drinking good wine. John 2, 1 through 11, it says, "On the third day, a wedding took place at Cana in Galilee. Jesus' mother, her name is Mary, was there. And Jesus and his disciples had been invited to the wedding. When the wine was gone, Jesus' mother said to him, 'They have no more wine.'" Now, in the first century, wedding culture was huge. It was like Sweet 16, Bridezilla on just steroids. It was a big deal. The family went all in on this wedding. And for them to have run out of wine would have been a huge disgrace for the whole family. It would have just ruined the whole event. And so this is not just like, oh, we ran out of wine. Can we run down to the store and get it? It's like, oh no, we've really messed up here. We're about to bring shame on our family and this culture. And so they've run out of wine. And so Mary comes up and talks to Jesus, and she says to him, "They have no more wine." Jesus says, "Woman," which in the Greek, that sounds kind of intense. He says, "Woman, why do you involve me?" But it's not as intense in the Greek, so it's just like, "Woman, why do you involve me?" Jesus is obviously going to respect his mom, so that's just, we love Mother Mary. But he says, "Why do you involve me?" Jesus replied, "My hour has not yet come." And then, I love this. Another reason why we just love and honor Mary is she's dope. She just ignores Jesus and says to the servants, "Do whatever he tells you." And nearby stood 6 stone water jars, which would have been 120 pounds of water. These 6 stone water jars, the kind used by the Jews for ceremonial washing, and holding from 20 to 30 gallons. Jesus said to the servants, "Fill the jars with water." So they filled them to the brim. Then he told them, now draw some out and take it to the master of the banquet." They did so, and the master of the banquet tasted the water that had been turned into wine. He did not realize where it had come from, though the servants who had drawn the water knew. Then he called the bridegroom aside and said, "Everybody brings out the choice wine first, and then the cheaper wine," because everyone's a little drunk and tipsy, and by the end of the night, you don't know what everything tastes like. So you bring out the good wine first. He says, "Everyone brings out the choice wine first, and then the cheaper wine after the guests have had too much to drink. But you have saved the best till now." What Jesus did here in Cana of Galilee was the first of the signs through which he revealed his glory, and his disciples believed in him. And I love this story because it's the first narrative we have of Jesus doing something miraculous. But more importantly, I just love that he's at a party. If you know anything about Jesus, you know that Jesus loved to party. He loved to be with people, so much so that the religious elite said that he was a drunk and an alcoholic and a glutton because he partied with people so very often. And so here is Jesus with his best friends at a wedding, and all of a sudden they're out of wine. And Jesus isn't quite ready to show up in this way, but his mom says, "Hey, they need help." And Jesus decides to practice radical hospitality. And the thing about the story is you don't have to be the host. You don't have to hold power. You don't need permission to practice radical hospitality. In the Gospel of Luke alone, we have over 10 accounts of Jesus eating with people. He's just always eating with people and spending time with people. And even beyond meals, he just welcomed people. The religious leader who came in the night because he was too scared that he might be seen talking to Jesus to ask questions. He's the kind of guy who can just approach in the dark and he's going to be cool with it. Or it says that the children loved to be with him, that they ran to him, and so much so adults tried to keep him apart. But over and over again, Jesus prepares a table everywhere he goes, whether literally or figuratively, through his posture, through the way he lives. And it's part of our tradition. It's all throughout the Hebrew scriptures as well, that there is a baseline of serving this God that requires us to live in the posture of radical hospitality. And there's a few ways I want us to think about doing this. And the first one is through the church, through LA Church, if this is a place that you call home. The church has a bad reputation at the moment. If you look at statistics and different polls and how people view the American church, and it's not good. And there's a lot of reasons why people don't see the church as being a safe place. And we understand that, and we're trying to work against that, reclaim what the gospel of the church is supposed to look like. But the church has a bad reputation, and so we are starting out already kind of in a hole as a church, as we're trying to do this new thing and invite people into the way of following Jesus. People already see us like we are corrupt and not good, because there are so many examples of where the church is corrupt and not good. And so we have to work extra hard as a people and as a church to reclaim that narrative and say, oh, we're so sorry that that has been the way it is, because we have felt it too, we have experienced it too, us too, but we're doing something new, we're taking it back. But it's kind of like a restaurant that got closed down by inspectors. Like, I used to have this favorite restaurant in Pasadena. I won't name what kind of food it was, but me and my two best buddies, we would always go there for lunch. We loved it. They had the best garlic naan, and it was just so good, and it was the best. One day, we're gonna meet up there on our lunch break, and we show up, and there's a sign on the door that says they've been closed down by the inspector. And whoever the inspector was who wrote the note, he didn't know how to spell cockroaches, and he just spelled cuckoo-roaches, which I just thought was also funny, but so sad, because I thought I could never come back to this restaurant again. It's like us, like during the Chipotle when they were making everybody sick. It was like us, hey, we're gonna open up a Chipotle franchise here, and everyone's like, no, aren't you killing people and poisoning people? And it's like, no, yeah, they were, but we've got a new recipe. And of course, no one's gonna trust us, and that's okay, we know that. We are invested in the slow work of just creating safe space for people to come and try again, even if it's uncomfortable, even if they're unsure, but we would create a space for people to try, to figure it out. And so we are the church. And we're doing this unique and hard work of taking back what it means to the church. And so we've kind of been saying a lot like, hey, we're a community of people who are trying church again. And I think this year, we're transitioning into, yes, we're still a place for people to come and try church again. But we're not just trying church again. I think this year for LA Church is embracing the idea that we are the church. Whether they like it or not, whether they approve of it or not, God has called us to be the church. And it's also not like we're just out here on our own. If you're new to LA Church, we're a part of an incredible network and denomination that has levels of diverse leadership over us that approves everything we do. And so know that we're just covered, and if I ever lose my mind and y'all need to get me out of here, you can talk to them and they're gonna take care of it. So I always thought when I started this church, I need multiple people to be able to fire me just in case I lose my mind like so many pastors do. I don't know, this job makes people go nuts. But so far I'm okay, 1 year in. We'll see what happens in year 2. But we're moving to the place where we're gonna kind of lean into this idea that we are now the church, and that whether people outside of this place believe in what we're doing, we know that God believes in us. We know that there are people and leaders who have been praying for this community, supporting this community for years now, even before it existed. We had people who believed in what this place would become. And that is that we would be a place of radical hospitality. That as people walk into these doors, even if you're new, maybe your first time here, you come back next week, if someone new comes in, what does it look like to practice radical hospitality within these walls? How can we make this place more friendly, more easy, more low pressure to be able to come in? Because we're already, once again, fighting against a bad reputation, so we have to lean in. So we dream of this place being, yes, a place of rest, but also a place of action, where our radical hospitality takes us to our neighbors. And so the second piece of this is that we would practice radical hospitality through us, outside of the doors of the church. That in our life, we would be hospitable above and beyond. And now this comes with wisdom and boundaries. Do not get yourself murdered or kidnapped. Be very smart in how you practice hospitality. If you see the random person on the side of the road with like the baby doll and it doesn't seem well, keep driving. It's okay to not practice radical hospitality to the guy with the chainsaw on the side of the road. You just keep going. It's okay. So within all of this, there are boundaries. Be smart about how you show up for your neighbors. Just thought, I've seen way too many these, murder podcasts and movies and things, so let's just all be safe. So the goal, as we're being smart and as we're being safe, is that we would practice radical hospitality through our daily life. And that takes intention and attention. Radical hospitality will take intention and attention. The first piece, intention, is that we set our mind, we set our heart that we are going to be a people that live this out. And like any practice, especially as we begin this new series of practicing the way of Jesus, as we practice these ancient things and these postures, they're not going to feel always good right up front. The thing about building a rhythm where eventually what seems foreign will eventually become just natural, an outflow of hospitality. But in the beginning, we have to be very intentional that we lean into that. And then also, you just have to pay attention. I think the main thing of being a person who carries the presence of God with them is that we would be a people who keep our eyes open. That sometimes we can be so inner focused that we can't even see what's going on around us. So we want to be a people that keeps our eyes open, looking for opportunities to show up in a world that is hurting, that is going through so many hardships, and it feels like culture's being squeezed and squeezed as we just can't afford to live and everything's so expensive and things are just hard. We need to lean into being a presence of hospitality for all those around us. And so that in ourselves, we would become a place of peace for others. And also that we would be a place and a person of action. There was this time back when I pastored before I walked away from the church for a long time, and I worked at this mega church out in Monrovia, and I was getting to preach, and it was like a big crowd. I didn't get to preach a lot, but when I did, it was like a big deal. And it was like, oh man, I get to like preach to the big church, and so I was pumped. And I was at Stumptown, just down the road here, and I was working on my sermon, and I was like in the zone, right? I was like, this is good, like God's gonna use this, and like I'm just so into it. And like out of the corner of my eye, I see this lady, and like, when you see folks who are just like going through something or experiencing something like beyond this world, maybe they took something, or they're just like, they're not totally with it. And I can see her coming, and I just know she's gonna talk to me. I just know it. Like, I'm one of those people, like, it doesn't matter if there's someone interesting in the room, like, they're gonna find me and just wanna hang out, and I'm just accepted at this point. But this moment, I was just like, no, please don't come talk to me. Please don't. Like, I can't. I am writing a sermon. Like, I am busy. Like, I'm doing something for God, lady. I need you to like move along to the next person because I'm in the zone. I can't stop right now. And without a doubt, right behind my computer, she just lands and she's there. And I just feel God like, I don't think God's violent, but he like slapped me in my face and was like, yo, you're an idiot. Look up. I'm here. Like, I'm here with you through this beloved daughter of mine. And I remember just feeling a good amount of guilt in that moment and just being like, oh man, I missed it. I was like so focused on the work of God that I forgot to just be a person that sees other people who are beloved children of God. That's what we believe at LA Church, is that if you exist on this planet, you are a beloved child of God. And God is pleased with you, and that is the good news of the kingdom. And so that's what we are all about. And so it takes attention. It takes looking beyond yourself and whatever is on your plate, which we know is a lot. And so we know that this is asking something radical of us. Because if you're anything like me, I'm max. How much energy do I even have for anything extra? And so I know life is busy and hard, but within our busy schedules, it doesn't take much to just show up, to take a moment and sit down. And we had a wonderful talk. I learned so much about her, and we got some coffee and some food, and we just hung out, and it was so good. And guess what? My sermon was fine. Who cared? It was probably even better because I shut up for a few minutes and listened to somebody else. And so we want to be a people that live in the nearness to God, live in the nearness to the Spirit, to the divine, the thing behind the thing, that we would be a people that live in that presence and that we're intentional and that we are aware of what's going on around us. So this is the part of the service where we break up in just some small groups of like 3 to 5 people, and we're going to ask a question. And if this is your nightmare as an introvert, you're probably like me, feel free to not participate, grab a cup of coffee, or stare at your phone, which is the universal sign of just leave me alone. So that's fine too. But if you're up for it, it's the best thing that we do, I think, on a Sunday. I resisted this for a while as an introvert. I was like, no one's going to want to do that. But I think the moments that we create that, we can begin to connect more and build friendships. That's what's important. One of the main things this year is going to be building community. We're going to hopefully just be here to hang out and chill beyond these places, that we would become what the gospel talks about, a family of God. So this is one of the ways we get to do that. And so the questions we're going to ask today are, have you ever experienced radical hospitality? And what was that like? So if you just share an experience, if you have one in the group. And then the second part is more action-oriented. What are some ways that you can practice radical hospitality in your own life? And if you can't think of anything, maybe that's something we can discuss as a group. But we're going to take 5 or 10 minutes. We'll play some music. Feel free to get more coffee, and then we'll come back and sing one more song and wrap it up. But yeah, so if you'll just gather with a few people around you, and then we will come back to just a few. And I think the third piece of this will end with this idea that we would have radical hospitality, that we would practice it through the church, that we would practice it through our individual lives in our own worlds and radiuses that we live in. But I think the third part is that we would have radical hospitality for ourselves. And the question is, are you able to receive hospitality? Sometimes that's hard. Sometimes to receive something from somebody and to be welcomed is uncomfortable. At least for me, as an introvert, I don't love celebrating my own birthdays. I don't really love being the center of attention or things like that for some reason. I don't know what that is. Whether that's I don't think I deserve it or whatever's going on. I'm always a little bit uncomfortable with it. And I think that's a really natural human response. But I think we have to not only have a posture of living out radical hospitality, but we have to have a posture of receiving it. And also to believe that we deserve to be welcomed. And so, don't rob someone of the blessing of getting to serve you. Jesus says, he that receiveth you, receiveth me. Apparently I copied the King James Version. That's okay. We're going to do receiveth today. He that receiveth you, receiveth me. And he that receives me, receives him that sent me. These were the words of Jesus when he was sending out his disciples. He told them that they represent him. So if anyone welcomes them, that person is welcoming him as well. So don't rob someone of that blessing that is you, Christ in you. And it's not that people welcome you in Jesus despite of you. It's like, oh, okay, well, we'll welcome you because you're in Jesus. This is the idea that we are being welcomed. And Jesus is saying that when they welcome you, they welcome me. And this is Jesus taking on our identity. He's a part of us, and we are a part of him. And this isn't like a Freaky Friday situation where someone's taking over your body. It's just simply Jesus is saying, I'm with you. I am with you in this. Where you go, I go. When they welcome you, they welcome me. But when they reject you, just know that Jesus is saying, they are rejecting me too. And he says, I'm with you in this. When they reject you, when they hurt you, when they oppress you, when they gaslight you, they're doing all those things to me too. And Jesus says we're not alone in this. And there's such relief in that, just knowing that we're good, we're okay. That no matter what happens around us, that in ourselves we know that we are loved, that we are good, and that we belong. And you are people who deserve radical hospitality. And I hope you have people and places in your life where you can experience that. Hopefully that happens here. Hopefully we can just lean into our hospitality, make this place more comfortable, more easygoing, so that more people can come and experience it. And part of being radically hospitable is welcoming people to the table like Jesus did. And so we get to wrap our time together as we partake in communion. And Jesus, in one of many examples of him sitting and eating with his friends, this was a different night. It was the night that he was going to be betrayed by one of the very men that sat at this table. And Jesus said to his beloved ones there, he said, I've eagerly waited for this moment. And having this church the last few weeks, I've eagerly waited to be able to come to the table together. And so Jesus, he took this loaf of bread. He said, this bread represents my body that will be broken for you. Because hours later, he would be arrested by the Romans, like religious elite, and eventually would end up on the cross because of his radical ways. And he said, this bread represents me and what I'm going to do for you, your love. And then he took the cup of wine, and he said, this wine represents my blood that is going to be poured out for you, and not only just for you, the people that are in this room and the people that belong in my tradition, but for all people, of all faiths, of all understanding, of all backgrounds. Jesus says, my blood will be poured out for the whole world. He says, take and eat and remember me. And he says, take and drink and remember me. And so today we get to come to the table and partake in the body of Christ, which is just a tangible representation, just a taste of the goodness of God and what he did for us. And so in this glass is obviously wine, and in the other glass is grape juice. So make your choice and just know you're very, very welcome at the table, because it is Jesus who invites us to the table.